So you are a captive insurance agent and you're considering leaving your captive insurance agency to be an independent agent, but you're not quite sure how to do it. I'm going to give you some advice on how to do so successfully, coming right up. Greetings and salutations, it's David Duford, owner of Duford Insurance Group, where I train and recruit agents nationally to sell things like final expense, Medicare, and annuities, both face-to-face and over the phone. Make sure you subscribe to this content if you happen to like it. Thanks a lot. So the reason I'm doing this video is because I was asked recently by a captive insurance agent who is interested in leaving his agency on how to do so in a way that's going to cause the least amount of fuss, that's not going to ruffle feathers, that's actually going to have the positive outcome that he or she wants to have. And so I promised I'd put a video together for that agent to give him or her some advice on what steps I would take if I were in that particular person's situation. So if you are a captive agent yourself and you're thinking possibly now or into the future about going independent and you want some advice on how to make the transition, this is going to be a great video for you to watch. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is question your convictions. Do you really want to leave? In fact, have you really thought about the consequences of what happens when you leave your captive agency? The reason I'm considering this or even discussing this is because going from a captive agency to being an independent agent is entirely different than if an independent agent switched from one agency to another independent agency. And here's why. One of the things that's unique about captive agencies is there tends to be a lot more camaraderie, a lot more of a culture, I guess you could say, that you find within a captive agency that binds all the agents and agency owners together, more so than I think you'll find on an independent agency basis, where it seems to me that most independent agents are more like a lone wolf type of professional. They're out there making sales. They're going out there to see the people. Sure, it's very similar to what you are experiencing, but the culture, I guess, from an agency standpoint, typically is very little to none. And a lot of agents coming from a captive background find it as entirely different. Sure, it's the same product, it's the same process, but there just isn't that same level of engagement, of camaraderie that was once easily found in plentiful supply in a captive agency. So the reason I'm asking you this, to consider this, is have you really thought about what it's like to lose all of that? A lot of people perform at their best because of this kind of engagement that a captive agency provides. And once you leave that, you're going to see a culture shock, really, of what it's like to work really and truly by yourself. Now, personally, I feel like an insurance agent, even in a captive environment or even independent, ultimately comes down to you, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to focus on, the process you're willing to follow. It all comes down to you. The buck always stops with you. But there is something different culturally from the captive agency to the independent process that shocks a lot of people, where a lot of people who did decently really struggle. And it's hard to put your finger on it because it's the same process, many times the same leads, same everything, except the culture is gone. So really, I want you to, even before you decide to make this decision, ask yourself what it would be like to be a lone wolf agent, to be really on your own, and how much that would affect your performance. If it doesn't really going to affect your performance, then great. But if it does, give it some serious thought about before you move to an agency where you're going to be treated like a lone wolf. Another thing I think that is really important is that when you move from captivity to freedom, to independence, is to make sure that you understand that with freedom comes responsibility. And one of those responsibilities is the requirement in most circumstances for you to invest your own money into leads. In other words, do you have the financial capability to buy your own leads? One of the benefits many captive organizations offer are lead financing or lead subsidies. And when you move to an independent insurance sales model, you have to carry the full cost in most circumstances of the leads that you buy, because why not? You're now independent. You've moved from a sales job to a sales business. And now the responsibility of buying leads rests solely upon you, which means you have to carry all of the risk And certainly, hopefully, with a good contract and setup, hopefully all of the reward. But you got to ask yourself, do you really have the financial capability to do this? And depending on what you're selling, the financial requirement's going to vary. Some organizations you don't need a lot, some you need a heck of a lot. So before you make the jump, ask yourself, do you have the financial capacity to truly be independent? Because if you're not, I think independence is great and it's something great to strive for, but you want to make sure that you're financially sound and have a lot of money tucked away in your bankroll to pay for leads before you make the jump ultimately, because you may not ever have a chance to get back into this business if you jump too soon from captivity to independence and don't have the financial wherewithal to survive. So let's say you actually want to leave. You've considered all of this and you've made up your mind that you absolutely are ready to leave. You're ready for independence. What steps do you need to take in order to make that transition to independence as smoothly as possible? So the big thing is don't burn any bridges as much as you can. It's really important to keep intact as much as you can the relationships that you make in all walks of your life in the insurance business. Guys, I can tell you firsthand, this is a very small business. People who were once my competition, we're now team members or we collaborate in business dealings. So always be friendly with the people who are surrounding you. You just never know when you'll run into them again. And it's always best, as a rule of thumb in business, to keep an open, transparent, and honest relationship as much as conceivably possible with anybody that you deal with. Even if you think you have some snake in the grass types that you're dealing with, make sure you try to be as honest and upfront about your transition as much as you can. Don't burn any bridges. Don't say mean things that you can't take back. Be respectful. Take the high road. All of this is harder to do, even if you have an axe to grind with your certain organization that you may be very well reasoned to have it. But take the high road, guys. You just never know where things go in this business, and it's always better to keep doors open instead of shut and locked. Likewise, the other difficulty in moving from captivity to independence is how will this affect your writing business in the short term? Because as much as you want to be transparent and open with your current captive agency about your desire to leave, the problem is that if you let them know early on that you're going to transition, I can tell you this from firsthand experience, there are many captive organizations who are going to be very upset with your decision to move on and will actually terminate you, remove your ability to write business immediately. And if you're in the process of taking several weeks to get appointed with independent carriers, you may be out for the count and not be able to write. And starting the transition where you don't and can't make money selling insurance can be very painful because you're jumping away from the security that sometimes captive organizations offer to now the insecurity of being an independent agent where everything absolutely falls completely on your lap. So what can you do about this? Some advice here I would give you. First of all, and as I'm a transparent person, I want to have transparent dealings with business owners, but there's so much at stake in this business with your business that if you let the cat out of the bag too soon, it can come back to bite you. So I hate suggesting it, but it's really the best option considering a host of bad options. And that is to not let your current organization know to the very last conceivable second. So here's why. Again, I've already explained, you could lose the ability if they terminate you immediately to write business with your current captive company. However, if you hold off on letting them know and you start the contracting process, you start the transition process to going independent without letting them know, the earliest that they're going to know without you telling them that you're an independent agent now is they're going to see these carriers pop up on your carrier production listing at your state. And that's the time in which they'll know that you're now not tied to them completely. Likewise, at the same time when they find that out, you're at the safest point that you can be because even if they terminate you, which they probably will, and get rid of you, the good news is that you still have your appointments with the other carriers. You don't have to worry about, going a week or two without writing business. You're in a position of strength leaving versus a position of potential weakness. The other thing I've heard some captive organizations do is that sometimes they send your uncovered or covered advance commissions to Vector. And this Vector strategy is going to prevent you from getting appointments. So if they terminate you today and send you the Vector tomorrow, and you haven't been set up with your new insurance carriers, and they find that you've been vectored on some level, which vectored means, by the way, that you owe money to an insurance company and no other insurance companies are usually going to allow you to get appointed. Well, now you've taken yourself out of the business entirely. Your upline at these captive organizations many times have the power to report you to Vector, whether you like it or not, or even if you dispute it. And at the worst, it's going to slow down your capability of getting up and running quickly, which again costs you money. So this is why I advocate not letting your captive agency know right to the last minute that you're deciding to go while you have your carrier appointments intact, and you don't have to worry about not getting those because of some aggressive manner to try to disrupt your capability to run a business by reporting you to Vector and preventing you from getting appointments. So I hope this helps you kind of navigate how to get started in the business of being an independent agent, getting out of the captive space. I think it's a great move to make. I think every agent who has this desire to be captive should make it. You just want to make sure you're making the right steps. Keep the doors open. Don't burn bridges. Protect yourself simultaneously. And many times the independent process of selling insurance is absolutely more lucrative and rewarding than being in a captive agency can be. My name is David DeFord, owner of DeFord Insurance Group. Do make sure you subscribe and like to this video if you haven't already. If you'd like to learn more about joining my agency, click the links above or below. It'll take you to an FAQ overview page where a lot of questions about what it's like to work with me are answered. And thanks so much for watching as always. Y'all take care.